Sign up for the Agranak Studios newsletter at agranak.com. I love AD&D's 2nd edition. It is by far my favorite edition of the D&D system, warts and all. I think the only real issue I have is that there are long textual diatribes that can make it hard for a DM to find what they need in-game. TSR back in the day, and WotC even now, have word count quotas, and it seems that in order to make a book appear to be, quote, worth the price, it has to have lots of words, what many people call fluff. Almost like a school kid writing about what they did last summer as a first assignment, only to start it by saying, "My teacher wanted me to write a paper on what I did last summer. In this 1,000-word summary, I will explain what I did last summer, so let's talk about what I did last summer." The two ebooks are not that bad, but some may argue otherwise. Now there is both good and bad with this. 1, you get some cool creative writing. 2, you get fluff that may mean little to you. Old School Essentials and even Shadowdark are, dare I say, bland in their writing, but as a rules reference, sort of perfect. At the table, that's what you really want, a tome to serve you while you game. 2nd edition and most editions of D&D have you hunting for the text you want, buried in a paragraph you can't currently find. On the contrary, these more wordy tomes are usually fun to read. It's like you're browsing and learning from some ancient tome. An occult-like, esoteric feeling washes over me as I read many of these books. I just don't get that feeling in other versions of D&D, or most modern OSR games that, quote, try to capture the feeling of the original game. Let me shift gears for a second. Let's talk about the Satanic Panic. Many people think that the Satanic Panic was limited to the late 70s and 80s. Let me tell you that it was alive and well deep into the 90s. How do I know? I lived it. In more ways than you may realize. I was both on the receiving and dishing out end of it all at different eras of my life. At one point, I was involved in a cult that pushed some pretty rank ideas. And I too pushed those horrible ideas, just for a time though. Sadly, I ripped up and got rid of all my D&D books once upon a time in the 1990s. I'm still trying to reacquire those books. It's a slow process as I had a lot of stuff. This book here tiptoes a very interesting line. One that had TSR execs and writers sick and tired of MAD, that is, Mothers Against D&D, constantly harping on TSR and their evil, youth-corrupting game of Dungeons & Dragons. Okay, totally messed that up. MAD is Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and BAD is Bothered About Dungeons & Dragons. So, two different organizations, but yeah, there you go. Let alone fundamental groups preaching it from pulpits week in and week out. MAD sent letter after letter to TSR, and they had conferences warning people of the satanic and evil dangers of D&D. And they also wrote books that would be purchased and circulated, creating another anti-fun cult of authorities. What is even worse is that those from within the hobby kick around AD&D's 2nd edition, citing that the game had lost its teeth. No more demons, devils, assassins, or nudity in their artwork. The distancing of the ousted Gary Gygax, etc. But I have another take. AD&D 1st edition was what it was. Gary and company had no problems just being who they were. But AD&D's 2nd edition took a more covert and sneaky approach to put out, dare I say, more dark and twisted themes. Sure, demons and devils were not in the core books. The fundamentalist wackos were only going as deep as the core books for most of their research to damn the game. the Player's Handbook, DMG, the Monstrous Compendium. If TSR kept out the questionable stuff from there, hopefully they will look no further was, I think, the thought. At least that was the goal, right? In some of these books, like the one in this box, TSR was very sneaky in writing that players should not play these sort of characters. It is designed for bad guys only. Then proceeded to explain and show exactly how to give a player the tools they need to make a Necromancer. Now, there are 15 player-focused splat books in Brown, specifically designed for players. I have all of them, such as the Complete Ninja's Handbook. There's 15 of them. Some of them have to do with races. Others have to do with character class and options, introducing kits in these. These blue books are for the Dungeon Master. It's a rule supplement, Dungeon Master Guide Rule Supplement is what this says, and this was for the Dungeon Master. There's no way to mince words here. This is an evil class by and large. Sure, it talks about white and gray necromancy, but your run-of-the-mill necromancer is evil through and through. TSR hid one of the gems of an evil, playable character class in plain sight. It is so wonderfully deceptive that I cannot help but applaud Steve Kurtz and TSR during this very delicate time in dealing with the delusional public that seemed to have mass psychosis, and their target was not only D&D, but heavy metal music, both of which I've been firmly planted in since the 80s, except for when I was involved in a cult. Damn, that was a long intro. Let's take a look at what's inside.
Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss an upload, and join the conversation over at the Agranak Cult Discord.
The Complete Book of Necromancers is a gem and praised as one of the best splat books made in the series. It is becoming increasingly harder to find, and the price for physical used copies are sitting around $120 range, upwards of $140. I was able to nab this for $80 plus shipping and tax. Necromancy and the PC. In general, the material presented in this tome is for the Dungeon Master's eyes only. The Necromancer put forth herein is a maverick. He or she operates by a set of nasty rules that are completely beyond the realm of most, quote, normal, unquote, player characters. These rules must be kept strictly hidden from the players, even if they are adamant about portraying a necromancer. Well, that paragraph should ward off the mothers at MAD and all the fundamental preachers. With this sort of idea, a necromancer could have been outlined in the Complete Book of Villains very easily, but the Complete Book of Necromancers lays out all the details and also includes kits, basically a subclass, which are a staple in the complete class books, the brown books, and the kits don't show up anywhere in the Complete Book of Villains. This is one of the most beautifully deceptive and displayed middle fingers to naysayers at the time. This is the epitome of tact, which is basically telling someone to go to hell and having them look forward to the trip. So the book goes into generating ability scores and different methods, and also shows new methods that aren't in the player's handbook. Interesting thing is, I don't recall ever rolling ability scores for my BBEGs. I just would choose stats that made sense and set them before the players to be pursued and ultimately destroyed, as most of us do. But this book spends some time on the subject and adds additional methods for helping to guarantee that there is a playable necromancer at the end of going through the motions. And then it shows an extended necromancer or wizard level advancement up to 30th level, with XP, hit dice, Thaco, spell levels, etc. Let's just say I've never really seen this for just NPCs and villains. Wink wink, nod nod, thank you, Steve Kurtz. Then we get into the kits, which are basically subclasses that we don't see in the Complete Book of villains or anywhere in the Dungeon Master Guide, etc. for 2nd edition. But they are in the brown books. At any rate, archetypical necromancer. It goes into the anatomist, sort of like Frankenstein, right? The Death Slayer, which is arguably an honor-seeking kit that's looking to destroy undead. Very Frankenstein there. Awesome art, as usual. The Philosopher, which is a great obsessive personality to play. And the Undead Master, an arguably evil kit. Did I mention? I don't mind evil characters. It's not really that hard to deal with. And then it goes into some other not as fleshed out Necromancer kits, which was probably due to time constraints in getting the book out. They are the Witch and also the Ghoul Lord. And then on the same page, they get into new non-weapon proficiencies, arguably something really just for player characters. Though you could definitely use non-weapon proficiencies for your villains, I don't recall really ever seeing that. It was basically just combat stats, what they would do in combat, and that's that. But maybe if they were a more fleshed out NPC, maybe that is something that was included in various adventures. Let me know if you remember of any. Next, in Chapter 2, we get into dual class characters. There's the Fighter Necromancer, the Thief Necromancer, Cleric Necromancer, and the interesting thing to note is that the book tries to deter this combination, saying it is a difficult combination to Dungeon Master. Obviously hinting at players playing one, wink wink, but they're saying that there would be probably some sort of conflict between faith and pursuing necromancy. And I could not disagree more. Clerics literally deal in the domain of necromancy. All your healing spells like Cure Light Wounds, Cure Heavy Wounds, Heal, Resurrection, blah blah blah. Everything that's saving all the rest of the PCs at every single encounter and battle are from the School of Necromancy. It has the Psionicist Necromancer and the wild talents that go along with it. Now we get into Vile Pacts and Dark Gifts. Always welcome in my game. Here are some of those Vile Pacts and Dark Gifts, getting into races and how they might play them. And then the price. This is a great section. Oh my gosh. This is something you see baked into a lot of OSR games of today, like Dungeon Crawl Classics. The idea that using dark magic has a price and can deform you in a variety of ways. There's a percentage chance of triggering one of these mutations every time you use these dark spells because you are garnering the attention of extraplanar beings that just want to make your life a living hell. It's gold. Now there are 4 categories of these. It's physical deformity, bodily affliction, insanity or madness, and unholy compulsion. And for each one of those, there's a D20 table for each category. I really love the unholy compulsion backlashes and curses here. Eats corpse flesh, howls under the night sky or at the moon, sheds its own blood, 1 to 4 hit points of damage 1 time a day, wounded by contact with freshly cut wood. I mean, this is something straight out of Myrkborg. So awesome. So it gets into the dark art, which is basically all about the spells and the new wizard spells that are presented. There's 3 different categories. There is criminal or black necromancy, gray or neutral necromancy, and benign or white necromancy. And then gets into new spells. 1st level all the way through 9th. Wow, it's almost like they wanted players to be able to play this class or DM-only villains. Awesome art. I love these splash pages. So cool. Next, Chapter 5, Death Priests. Even though the book previously deterred you from creating a cleric necromancer because it was supposed to be hard for a DM to kind of handle it, it dives into it a whole chapter here for necromantic priests. Are you reading between the lines yet? On page 66 here, there is another extended level advancement table for the Death Priest. Very curious, huh? And then it goes into all these different gods of the dead. The goddess of murder, the god of pestilence, the god of suffering, the lord of undead. Now there's all the new Necromancer pre-spells. Did I mention that this book is friggin' awesome? And it goes all the way to 7th level. In Chapter 7, it gets into basically people that you might have relationships with as one of these necromancers. So, apprentices, henchmen, familiars, undead minions, and then gets into secret societies, the Cult of Worms, the Scabrous Society, the Cult of Pain, an Anatomical Academy, and then gets into poisons and potions, rather than potions and poisons. And then also a whole ton of magic items. Plague bolts, Staff of Skulls, just really cool stuff here. Now what's really awesome about this is that it gets into an abbreviated campaign setting. Really, you'd want something about this size to go into a campaign setting to give you enough to chew on, but this is enough because it is a small area for at least a short-term campaign. The setting is on the Isle of Sahu. I believe that's how you would say that. It's the Isle of the Necromancer Kings. It details the different locations on this map, and then gets into adventure hooks for a few pages here, and then fleshes out a bunch of NPCs for you to interact with, or hunt down, or maybe they're just rival necromancers that you need to put down and steal all of their power. Finally, the appendices here for a neat, tidy reference. Common spells for necromancers, wizard and priest spells specifically to do with necromancy, and then the full index of necromantic spells. This is obviously an amazing book that really has everything you need. I mean, you could pick up a player's handbook and this book and play for years and years with only necromancer PCs or NPCs. $120 is a lot of money for a book, but I did leave a link to the PDF for drive-through, and in fact, it's an affiliate link, so it'll give me a little bit of a kickback if you buy through the link. Though you will be also giving money to Wizards of the Coast if you do so make up your own mind on that and what you want to do. But this is a gem. This may be the most badass book in the Splat Book series. That is exactly what it claimed it was not. A beautiful middle finger to those that wish to control you. A wonderfully dark class for player characters to play until 30th level. Yeah, awesome. Hey, thanks for stopping by Agranak Studios today, and we'll see you on the next one. Later!
This video was brought to you by the generous support of our patrons. Consider becoming a patron so you can help us make more content like this. Or get yourself a t-shirt below. Later. Alright, do this and do that and do this and do that. And watch this video.